What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we start off with the Celtics and Nuggets finding themselves in an early hole in their respective conference finals matchups. We debate what each team needs to do to get back into their series and how we think this will end up. Next, we jump over to the NFL where we break down all of this week's past injuries, so many of them, and recap some of the best matchups that we saw. All that and much more coming your way right now. Nick, it was a tumultuous weekend to say the least. Um, I know how I felt, but I mean, I want to hear from you. How'd you feel with the weekend and what you saw?
I don't think the NFL could have expected anything like this. And I'm not going to blame them fully, but there should be some blame on the NFL. When you remove a preseason and you don't give players some time to get their bodies back into playing shape, like it's one thing to practice, but it's one thing to be in game speed getting tackled. Like that's totally different. Like you can't remove a preseason and not expect this to happen, but it doesn't fall all it falls on the players, it falls on the teams, it falls on the NFL. There's something at every level that could have fixed this. It's a shame that this happened. It has ruined the season for some teams, and this is just not the way you want to start the NFL season.
No, it was a very tough blow to watch all the injuries. I mean, you and I we watched NFL Red Zone, and it was just injury break after injury break after injury break, and it got to a point where we were kind of just looking at each other saying, "The hell was happening? What is going on?" Um, it's tough. I mean, until you get those live reps, whether you're a defensive tackle or defensive end that's, getting blocked by an O lineman and somebody rolls up on you, or you get jerked to the wrong side and, there goes your knee or whatever the case. But there were a ton of knee injuries that happened this weekend. We'll
Seven
get
torn
to
ACLs. Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna get to all of that in a bit, but I wanted to get your at least your initial reaction on that.
It's a shame. That's really what it is. It's just a shame. This could have been avoided, but
Yeah, for
we're
sure.
we're, we're here. We got to deal with it.
My thoughts and prayers to all of these families. And one thing that we didn't put on here that I want to address: Patriots running back James White. His parents were in a critical car accident in Florida. Right, I believe it was Sunday morning. His father was killed at the scene, and his mother still remains in critical condition. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to James and his family, especially during this time. James White, for those of you who aren't Patriots fans or don't know who James White is, he is one of the most respected athletes in the game today. He is an incredible person. He has a heart of gold, and I mean, if you just saw how players around the league who knew James were reacting, you'd know that he's a special person. His father was a respected sergeant in the Miami-Dade County's office. He was that. It's a terrible loss, and our thoughts and prayers go out to James and his family. All right, so let's backtrack. We're going to start with the NBA today because the NBA is in full swing. We are in the conference finals. We're getting down to it. We're about to figure out who is going to be in the NBA finals. Let's start with the Heat and Celtics series. So the Heat currently lead the Celtics 2-1 in the series. The Celtics blew double-digit leads in all three of their games, mostly starting in the third quarter and then definitely in the fourth quarter. Gordon Hayward returned in game three, which helped stave off the Heat comeback in that game, allowing them to take one of these games and not be down in a 3-0 deficit. Are you still confident in your pre-series pick that the Celtics will win in 6 games?
I mean, at this point, they need to win out.
Right.
That's a tough task. So I'd be more inclined to take your approach and say it's going to go to 7 games. This series is for anybody. Anybody can win this series now that Gordon Hayward's back. The Celtics need to do a better job of handling the fourth quarter better. They cannot become lackadaisical. They can't just be carefree and give up and just think that, oh, they have a 12, 15 point lead going into the fourth quarter. They can relax. They can take time off. They can just do what they want. No, we've seen this time and time again from the Heat throughout the playoffs this year, where they come back in every single game and they dominate the fourth quarter. They have these young guys that if you give them any sort of room, even if you don't give them room, they're gonna hit some crazy shots. And you can't take that for granted because they can come back in 2 to 3 drives. It does not take them much time to get back into a game. I kind of would compare them to the Kansas City Chiefs. They can be down in a game by a ton, but they can come back in absolutely no time. And you're like, what just happened?
Yep.
And the Heat need to be taken more seriously. They have a ton of weapons. They go extremely deep. And they just have some weapons that the Celtics can't really compete with, mainly Bam Adebayo. There is nobody on the Celtics who has the size to handle him. You have Daniel Tice, who is just too small. He gets back down every time. You have Enes Kanter, who isn't really a defensive guy. He's more offensive. And Robert Williams just isn't getting any playtime because he is still a young guy who really doesn't know how to play with the rest of the team. So he has a slow approach in the series. Bam Adebayo is having his way with the Celtics right now, and he has been the true difference maker in this series.
Yeah. It was interesting for me to see Jimmy Butler sat out the closing minutes of the fourth quarter in game 3, and they rode with Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Bam Adebayo, Goran Dragic, and I can't remember. And Jay Crowder. So that was their 5 that they ended the game with. I was a little surprised their star on the team, their team leader Jimmy Butler, was not on the floor. It kind of piqued my interest a little bit. So I want to watch that going forward. I want to make note of that. But to go back to your point, I think Robert Williams is the perfect person to handle Bam Adebayo. Physically, they are basically the same person. Bam is obviously a better skill player than Robert Williams is. But as it stands right now, I mean, you need an athletic center who can guard both the perimeter as well as the pick and roll and underneath and bang with him, because he is a strong dude who's not willing to he's willing to take names with him. And at this point, I think Daniel Tice is just too unathletic as a center. And I think Enes Kanter is just too much of a liability on the defensive end to utilize him. So I agree with you that he is one of the driving factors for the Celtics miscues. But if I had to really, take a shot here, the biggest issue is the Celtics themselves. They are beating themselves. They had a 23, 26 point lead in game 2 and blew it in the second half. I mean, yeah, after a certain point, you can only blame, the tools you have so much. The fact is that they were up with a very comfortable lead, and they allowed Miami to chip away at that lead. And if you watch that game, we're talking about game 2. If you watch that game, there was lackadaisical passing, too many players that were trying to play hero ball. You had guys that weren't getting back on the defensive end, guys that weren't hustling down the floor. I mean, everything. And then you obviously heard it culminate in the Celtics were absolutely they went at each other's throats in the locker room. Marcus Smart ended up getting thrown out of the locker room to cool off because he was going after Jaylen Brown so hard. Those guys, they love each other. They are a family. And I believe Marcus Smart said it best. We're a family. We're allowed to fight with each other, but nobody's allowed to fight with us because we're all going to be there. And I like that mentality, but I hope that something was accomplished through this. Obviously, the return of Gordon Hayward has allowed for the Celtics to be more dynamic on the floor. It allows more rust for Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Kemba Walker can get some time with Gordon Hayward now, where they can run pick and rolls and do his thing. I believe that's a huge uplift that they haven't had, and there's not a lot of film with this team and Gordon Hayward together. So it's going to be tough on Eric Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler and those boys to try to figure out how they're going to stop the Celtics now that they have Gordon Hayward. And people are wondering, is Gordon fully back? Is he going to be eased in? They threw him out there for 30 minutes. I mean, it's not 40 plus, but he did the job that he needed to do. And I think that's all you can ask of Gordon Hayward. He made his shots. You're talking about a 20 plus point scorer per night that can come off the bench or can start for you. And, he needs to be taken seriously. And on the defensive end, Bam Adebayo can't cheat because if, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, or Kemba are driving to the hole, Bam Adebayo can't step into the paint and try to block them like the block in game one, where they can just pass the ball to Gordon, who's going to be running toward the basket anyway, right behind him, and they'll get an easy two. So honestly, right now, the Heat are going to be put back onto their heels. I'm still confident in my pick. I chose the Celtics in 7 because Gordon Hayward wasn't going to be starting the series right away. But I'm happy overall with everything that I've seen. The Celtics need to stop beating each other. You can't dwell on the past. They know what they need to do, and it's time to move forward and take control. I mean, if they win Game 4, the series is tied up, and it's a best of 3 at that point.
One last point I want to make is, in my opinion, Marcus Smart has been outplaying Kemba Walker in this series. I think he's been shooting really well.
I'd say the playoffs.
Okay, that's fair. But for this specific series, he's been shooting extremely well. He's been defending incredibly. He's been doing everything. This guy is everything you want in a player, and we all know that. Now that Gordon Hayward's back, Marcus Smart takes a back seat and hits the bench. He's now the 6th man. Having to defend Marcus Smart coming from the bench is extremely tough. And so the Heat have to really game plan against this, because I don't think they really have anybody on the bench who can compete against Marcus Smart.
It depends on their lineup, but it would be possibly Jay Crowder.
But Jay Crowder, he has no shot, so you don't really have to defend him. And then Jay Crowder is too slow. Marcus Smart can run around him. They played together.
He's a pull-up jump. He's a pull-up three-point shooter, though.
The thing is, we know how to play against Jay Crowder because he was a Celtic for a while. We know how to play against Kelly Olynyk because he was a Celtic for a while. So these players don't really have any skills that they've improved on that we don't know about. So we know how to defend them really well. And I think the Celtics will be able to really take advantage of Marcus Smart coming off the bench. He'll be fresh. I mean, he's been playing 30 plus minutes a game, since Gordon Hayward's been out. Now he's going to be playing 20 to 25 minutes, and he's going to be flying around the court. He's going to make it extremely tough. The second team for the Heat hasn't really played against him when he has more rest. So this is uncharted territories for the Heat. It's going to be a different Celtics moving forward with Gordon Hayward back. Gordon Hayward is a more dynamic player when it comes to offensive style, but
right.
Marcus Smart is a completely different animal that you just can't predict what he's going to do.
So I just want to respond to 2 things. One, it's a little blasphemous that you tell me that Jay Crowder can't shoot because he's one of the best 3-and-D guys in the NBA today.
Not this series.
Just in general, he might be having a down series, but overall, he's one of the best 3-and-D guys that the NBA has to offer. Coming off of that, though, the Celtics were the best when their lineup was Kemba, Marcus, Jaylen, Jason, and Gordon. That was their small lineup that they went with, and that's when they scored the most points and defended the best. Because at that point, the only person that has somewhat of an advantage on the Heat would be Bam Adebayo, and they're so quick that they can just guard him whether he's out at the perimeter, because they're not going to let him post up. They're going to try to close in on the paint, and they're going to utilize their size and quickness to try to get any pass in the air out of out of his hands. So, I think that's something that we should also watch out for, is that the Celtics utilizing their quote unquote death lineup, their small lineup that they kind of pulled from what the Golden State Warriors used to do. Gordon Hayward being your 5 is a little suspect, but when you're playing against the team that, Bam Adebayo is the center, I mean, he's not 7'1", he's a physical presence, but he's not the tallest, he's not the biggest. He can be handled by somebody who plays the power forward position. And when we were talking about the athletic ability or lack thereof of Enes Kanter and Daniel Tice, Gordon Hayward can fill that role pretty easily. And I'd like to see a little more of that situation put on them and see how, again, Eric Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler and those boys respond to that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough challenge for them moving forward. And I don't expect the Celtics to be giving up any more big leads in the fourth quarter. I think they just have too much talent. They're a deeper team now, and they've learned their lesson from the first 2 games. I know.
I'm interested. Yeah.
Well, we almost saw them give it up in the game 3. They almost lost the game, and I think Brad Stevens is going to make a real point of that moving forward. They have a lot of time off between game 3 and game 4.
They finally get some rest.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't had rest.
Both teams do.
Yeah, but the Heat had a lot of rest because they beat Milwaukee in 5. We took Toronto to 7 and had multiple overtimes, right? And then game 1 was an overtime game for this series. So the Celtics are still, they're, I understand they're professional athletes, but it does take a toll playing every other night at maximum capacity. You're playing 40 plus minutes per game. It's going to wear and tear on your body. They haven't played, I believe, what was the last game that they played was Saturday? Yeah, Saturday night they played. They don't play until Wednesday. That's a good chunk of time off. Gordon Hayward gets plenty of rest after his first time back. I'll be interested to see this game and how it moves forward. But the one spotlight, and we didn't really touch on this, but he needs a mention, Duncan Robinson. I must have been under a rock or something, because this man... I mean,
I've been saying his name for weeks now.
No, I get that, but I don't know what the hell this man has done, but he is a shooting nightmare for defenses. He can pull up from anywhere at any point in time. It seems like every time he catches the ball, it's in his shooting pocket. There's almost no defense for him, because I've seen Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart play really, really great defense on him, and it doesn't matter. The ball goes up, the ball goes down, right in the net, and there's nothing. I thought that was going to be Tyler Hero, but it's surprising me that it's Duncan Robinson, and his size also is something that, because if he can continue shooting that way, imagine what he can do when he starts driving to the hole. Right, when he develops a more complete game where he can either dribble drive or he can pull up from 3, you're going to have to respect both, and you're not going to be able to play so far into him. He's going to be somebody to watch out for, and I think he'll end up being a perennial all-star in this league.
Oh, for sure. He's a second-year player in the NBA. He's 23 years old. Yeah, this kid's going to go extremely far in this league.
Oh, for sure. But again, I'll be interested to see, how the Heat do and everything like that. But I want to switch it over to the other conference, but also still in Orlando, the Nuggets-Lakers series. And the Lakers lead the series 2-0. But just because the Lakers lead 2-0 doesn't tell the whole story. The Nuggets fought back in game 2. They were down more than 20 points. They took a late lead before Anthony Davis yelled Kobe and hit the game winner right at the buzzer. I think it begs the question, do you think the Nuggets can find a way to overcome this deficit and contend in this series, even though the games haven't been so lopsided?
No, I don't. I really don't think they have an answer for Anthony Davis. Nikola Jokic is a great offensive center, but he's terrible at defending players. And Anthony Davis needs to be defended by somebody who's elite, and they don't have that. So you can guard LeBron all you want, but there are plenty of other weapons on this team. And Anthony Davis has been proving that, putting up 30-plus points a game just absolutely dominating. Like he has been the Lakers team. Like you LeBron gets too much credit in my opinion for this team. Anthony Davis doesn't get enough. Anthony Davis has done so much more than LeBron has. And he needs to be the focus of for the Nuggets moving forward. They need to figure out a way to stop him. And I don't know if they can because they just don't have that player.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Anthony Davis, man, he is a manimal. Obviously, we knew he's an all-around superstar. We understand all of that, but the fact remains is that LeBron has kind of taken a back seat to Anthony Davis in these playoffs. Not just this series, but these playoffs. Anthony Davis is on fire. He can score from anywhere on the court. This is the second time in LeBron James' career where on a final series, he didn't touch the ball once. Do you know what I'm going to play a little game with you. Do you know what the other series was? The other offensive series that happened?
Are you talking about this year?
No. In his career.
Probably in Miami.
Nope. It was in Cleveland when Kyrie made that three against the Warriors.
Oh, okay.
He never touched the ball on that series.
Wow.
It wasn't the final series of the game because they played defense after that. But the fact remains that Anthony Davis is just their go-to guy now, and LeBron James is willingly stepping back and saying, "It's all you." And I have some things that I want to bring up. Let me just pull this up here. One of the biggest things was that Anthony Davis was clearly brought to Los Angeles to be LeBron James' running mate. It was 1A and 1B. It's not A and B, or 1 and 2. It's, these guys are superstars in this league. They are looked up to by so many. LeBron James in the second half went 2 for 9 shooting. He had 6 points, and he had more turnovers than assists. He had 4 turnovers to 3 assists. That's in the second half. Excuse me. Davis scored 22 of his 31 points in the second half, 8 for 13 shooting. He scored 10 in the last 5 minutes, including 2 major three-pointers to give the Lakers the lead. I think that's absolutely incredible for somebody who has really never been in the situation where they're competing for a title or they're going to be, taken seriously in the playoffs, to show up and show out at this point in time. I can only say that he is a superstar so many times that we should expect it, but he's never been at this stage before. LeBron has. So to see LeBron take a back seat when he's been here and done it before versus Anthony Davis, who this is his first time in this arena, I have to give my hat off to Anthony Davis. He is showing up and showing out like there is no tomorrow.
Right, but we've always known that Anthony Davis is this player. He just never had the supporting cast. And now he has that supporting cast, and we're like, oh, Anthony Davis is the real deal. Of course he is. We've known this. The Pelicans went to the playoffs with, he brought the team to the playoffs before, and they did somewhat well. He was amazing. He's been amazing, and he's finally getting the recognition he deserves. But I just don't understand how so many people have overlooked this man for so long.
I believe that, again, there are certain players that have great careers, but they just get lost in the shuffle if they're not on a winning organization or a storied franchise, even at that. I mean, look at Paul Pierce. Everybody knew who Paul Pierce was, how great he was, but people didn't take notice until he won with the Celtics, right? Until he brought KG and Ray Allen to Boston and won with them. People didn't take notice of who he was. And, the same could go for plenty of players. I mean, Charles Barkley is never really recognized as a top basketball player because he's never won a championship. But the fact remains is that if you want somebody who, in their prime at your power forward position, I don't know if you're going to take anybody maybe you're taking Tim Duncan, but outside of Tim Duncan, Charles Barkley's got to be your go-to guy. The fact remains, Anthony Davis is proving to us exactly why he is one of the faces of the NBA today. And for the Lakers to have not only LeBron James, but also Anthony Davis is a very, very scary thought. Everybody needs to take notice. So just to go all the way back to answer the question, do I believe the Nuggets can find a way to overcome and contend in the series? No. I love 40 ball Jamal. That's my guy. I'll ride or die with him, but he's not enough. It doesn't matter because all they have to do is stick LeBron on him, and now he's going to be shut down because just sheer size difference. But I don't think Paul Millsap can contend with Anthony Davis at the power forward position. Nikola Jokic has his defensive struggles, even though he can score the ball at will. I don't believe that defensively they're going to have an answer for these guys. And you're talking about, the bench has Kyle Kuzma coming off of it as your sixth man. And, Jokic already has his hands full with Dwight Howard that seems a little rejuvenated, almost like his Orlando days. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. But maybe they take one game. Maybe it goes 5. I don't think they're going to get swept, but now it's over.
The Nuggets aren't going to win this series, but they're going to learn a lot. And this is an extremely young team. Michael Porter Jr. is going to be a star for them. They need to get a couple more support roles, and they're going to be a team to compete. The Lakers, this team is not going to be around for that much longer. LeBron has got a couple more years in the league. Anthony Davis, he'll probably move on after that. So you're not going to have to deal with the Lakers, today's Lakers, for much longer. But by the time your team is ready, then they're going to have a clear path to the finals.
Yeah, I would say the only thing that the Nuggets have to worry about is replacing Paul Millsap because he is at the end of his career in some aspects, and I think that which is fine. They have plenty of time to try to figure out an answer for that. I like what they have though, as far as you have Jamal Murray, my boy 40 ball Jamal, Michael Porter Jr., Nikola Jokic. I mean, those 3 studs on the offensive side of the ball are incredible. If you can get a defensive stalwart at your 2 and 4, I mean, they will be a team to be reckoned with, honestly. That'll be a team that nobody wants to see at any point in the playoffs.
Yeah. It's gonna be a nightmare.
For sure. Game 4 of the Celtics is on Wednesday. Game 3, as of recording, is tonight, Tuesday. So we don't know how this has all played out. But, make sure to let us know on social media what you think of our thoughts on the NBA, where you think the Celtics and the Nuggets will be if they can win a game or so. Hit us up on social media. All right, so let's now transition over to the NFL. All right, so the NFL, as we said in the opening, had quite the weekend. A lot of notable injuries, and I'm just going to go through them very quickly, and then we can talk about them afterward. Nick Bosa, torn ACL. Solomon Thomas, torn ACL. Jimmy Garoppolo, high ankle sprain. Raheem Mostert, sprained MCL. Saquon Barkley, torn ACL. Sterling Shepard, turf toe. Christian McCaffrey, high ankle sprain. Drew Lock, AC joint sprain. Cortland Sutton, torn ACL. Devontae Adams, hamstring injury. Tavon Young, torn ACL. Malik Hooker, torn Achilles. Paris Campbell, PCL, placed on IR. Brandon Sheriff, sprained MCL. Byron Jones, groin injury. Tyrod Taylor, which is an interesting one, had chest pains pregame. He had to go to the hospital for. Anthony Barr, torn pectoral muscle. Brandon Linder, knee injury. Isaac Siamalu, knee injury. Caleb McGrady, sprained MCL. Bruce Irvin, torn ACL. Marquise Blair, torn ACL. Will Fuller, hamstring injury. Those are the notable names that people know.
And for those of you who missed that, we will be listing all of these injuries in the description. So check out the list. It is one of the most depressing things I've ever put together. This is just unacceptable on all levels. This cannot happen.
Yeah. And make sure to follow us on Twitter again, because as the news was breaking, we were putting out all that information onto Twitter and making sure that everybody knew what was up to date. All right, so I honestly don't know where to begin, but Who do you think was, what are some of the biggest losses that we saw suffer?
Oh, there's, I mean, the entire list is a huge loss.
No, of course.
This entire, if you made a team of this entire list, this would win any Super Bowl. Like this team is unbelievable. Like the injury team is just unreal. But Nick Bosa, huge loss. That just is a killer for the 49ers. They had no wide receivers to begin with, and now their defensive line is gone with Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas. Yeah, Kinlaw's there. He's a rookie. You have D Ford. That's great. And you just brought in
out.
You just brought in
He was
Zeke
injured.
Ansah. So there's just so many weapons. Oh, and you've got Richard Sherman on IR. That's great. Have fun with that. 49ers season, I'm sorry to say, it's over, but the good thing is you're going to get a great draft pick, and your team next year is going to be at full strength. So next year is going to be a tough one for the rest of the NFC West. So that's the silver lining of this entire thing. The other big injury, Saquon Barkley. He is the Giants' offense right now. I think Daniel Jones has been struggling with some of the weapons that he has. And then Sterling Shepard also went down. So now you're left with Golden Tate and Darius Slayton. Evan Ingram has done pretty much nothing so far this season, so you can't rely on him. And now you may be bringing in Devontae Freeman, but he's no Saquon Barkley. Deion Lewis is definitely no Saquon Barkley. He's not even Devontae Freeman. So,
and they have Wayne Gallman as a possible... again, not Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, no one is even coming remotely close to Saquon Barkley on this. So this is just absolutely terrible for the Giants. I'm going to be interested to see how Joe Judge approaches the coming weeks without Saquon, and how Daniel Jones approaches this. How is Jason Garrett going to coach him up? How is he going to get him mentally prepared to go without Saquon? Because Saquon is a safety blanket, and without him, Daniel Jones might be rattled. So it's gonna. Yeah. I'm gonna have to keep a close eye on Daniel Jones to see how he handles the pressure. He's been in pressure situations before, but he's always had Saquon behind him, and now he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers and the Giants definitely took major hits, but the 49ers were going to struggle in their division regardless, especially with the way the Cardinals are playing, especially the way the Rams have been playing.
Surprise.
There's an incredible... what did I say? My bold prediction is that 3 teams from the NFC West will make the playoffs. Right now, looking pretty damn good. But the fact remains, I think one of the biggest losses was to the Denver Broncos. They lost their up-and-coming star quarterback, Drew Lock, and they lost their number 1 receiver for the year, Cortland Sutton. That is basically their offense, because outside of Melvin Gordon, who defenses can now key on, I really don't. I mean, are you really riding with Jeff Driscoll? Should they give Colin Kaepernick a call? I mean, honestly, I don't really know where Denver goes from here, because they don't have the requisite talent to be able to contend with the Chiefs or the Raiders, which we'll get to in a minute, or the Chargers. I mean, those teams are going to outpace them by far now. I just don't see it. And then, I think one of the other bigger injuries that a lot of people aren't talking about as much is that Anthony Barr's torn pectoral muscle, him being out for the year. That Vikings defense was already in shambles. This is just the icing on the cake. I mean, they aren't going to be able to stop a nosebleed at this point. Anthony Barr was the requisite leader on that defense alongside his counterpart, Eric Kendricks. Obviously we know what happened in the offseason. They lost 3 of their top 4 corners. They lost Everson Griffin. They lost Linval Joseph. I mean, those are major pieces that they never responded by acquiring any other talent to replace them.
They got Yannick Ngakoue, who's done nothing. So there's that.
Right, but that's the thing, is you can game plan for one guy. Right, one guy coming off the edge, you double team him.
I mean, you still got Danielle Hunter on the other side, but you can easily double team those guys. There's nobody in the middle to handle. So, for sure, this is a bad situation for the Vikings, and we saw this coming. We saw this, and nobody else understood that the Vikings defense was not going to be the same. Everybody thought that, oh, this is their division. There's really no competition coming from the Packers. Don't ever count out Aaron Rodgers. Just don't.
Well, not only that, think it's not just Aaron Rodgers, it's the Aaron Jones show. I mean, Aaron Jones is putting up numbers like we haven't seen in that division in such a long time. So, and then you're going to take on the fact that Stephon Diggs is no longer your wide receiver 2 in Minnesota. So now all of it is on Adam Thielen and Kyle Rudolph. Rudolph has done absolutely nothing. Justin Jefferson is not being utilized. Oh, and by the way, another thing that people aren't realizing, Kevin Stefanski's gone. So their prime offensive coordinator who, basically ran the entire offense and had his scheme set up for everybody, just up and left. I mean, he's a head coach. So they are in, that whole team is in shambles right now. And Anthony Barr was just the icing on the cake. Again, we have our thoughts and prayers with all these players. I hope they get through it. I hope they get back to the point where they were pre-injury, because I love to see a very competitive league. I don't ever want to see anybody get injured, no matter how much I can't stand their team. Again, check out the description, check out our Twitter. We're going to have a list of all the injuries. I don't want to go too much more into this, but I believe, Nick, you told me that I want to get her name correct for the ESPN, Stephania Bell. Stephania Bell on ESPN noted that in week 2 of the preseason every year is when there are the most soft tissue injuries throughout the NFL. Obviously, there's no preseason this year, so this would have been week 2 of the preseason. You're seeing all of that play out now. This is not good.
Right.
Not good at all. I mean, this is a reason that the NFL needs to have a preseason.
Yeah, and normally this is when a lot of the young rookies or the guys who are on the back end of the roster are going to be playing a lot of time. But this is when the stars are going to be playing a couple snaps, and then they're going to go back to practice, and then they're going to play a few more snaps the next week. So they're gradually getting into the game. They're getting their body used to it again. They went from 0 to 100 instantly, and your body just doesn't know how to respond to that. And that is just that you have to understand that the body cannot do that, especially at the level they are playing, at the speed they are playing at. It's just not acceptable. And as the NFL, as a coach, as an owner, as an organization as a whole, you have to understand that these players need to play they need to play a certain way. They need to practice a certain way. And if you're going to go from practice to full game speed overnight, you need to prepare that properly by playing more team, 7-on-7s or game speed drills. You can't just, have no tackle drills, unpadded practices. There needs to be more of that instead. You need to. I will say,
if you look at some of the NFL teams that are coached up really well, those guys really aren't on this list. I mean, you're talking about the Patriots, you're talking about the Chiefs, you're talking about the Saints. Like a lot of those coaches that have been there and done it before, those guys are conditioned well enough throughout the offseason and the preseason. Those guys aren't on this list. So I think that there needs to be more of a group share type of information around these coaches and saying, this is how you need to condition your players so to avoid those soft tissue injuries. I mean, again, they're not avoidable at 100% capacity, but we can try to minimize the risk as much as possible. And I think there's a major issue. Just to add insult to the injury for the San Francisco 49ers, their entire sequence of events starting from last Friday up until yesterday was just a nightmare. So Friday they got onto the team plane, they were on the tarmac ready to take off, and then they got hit. Their plane was hit by some sort of shrapnel or something hit them. And they had to sit on the plane until it was all taken care of, until they checked the plane to make sure it was able to fly and everything. Then they finally took their long flight across country, flew out to the East Coast where they were getting ready to take on the New York Jets. Then they had all these rash of injuries. They go back to West Virginia where they're staying, and then the MRI truck that is holding all of their testing breaks down on the way to the lab. So then they can't get their results in time to figure out what the hell's going on. So they're just sitting there wondering what's going on. The truck is just broken down. And now they have to go back to MetLife Stadium in New Jersey to play the Giants next week. They are, I mean, at this point, I would just shut it down. Just throw up the white flag and head back to San Francisco, because you are not meant to be on the East Coast right now. That is for damn sure.
The one thing I will be looking out for when it comes to the 49ers is Nick Mullins. This is a guy that some people have been speculating could steal the job away from Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo has been doing an okay job as the starting quarterback. He is the definition of a team or a game manager. And I think Nick Mullins, if he lives up to the hype, is more than that and could steal the job away from Jimmy Garoppolo. And hey, if that happens, Jimmy Garoppolo has done a great job. Like, you turned a second round pick into a guy who brought your team to the Super Bowl. So that's a pretty good return on investment. And Nick Mullins, if he's better, that's great. You know, that's not a bad thing. That means your team is going to be playing even better moving forward. So it's going to be interesting to see how Mullins handles being the starting quarterback of this team for the next few weeks or longer.
For sure. No, for sure.
It's another Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick situation in San Francisco.
Excuse me. The silver lining to all of these injuries is that other people who aren't of name value will finally get some playing time, and who knows, you might find a diamond in the rough, and maybe somebody that can be used in trades, or somebody that might be, you know, a new starter for your team or something like that. So there's always a silver lining. I hope these guys just keep their heads up and they keep working on it. You know, they're going to have their requisite surgeries or rehabs or whatever the case is, and then they're going to move forward from there. All right, I don't want to talk injury anymore. So let's start off with we're going to go through 3 games that we picked out that we thought were the most notable from this week. The first of which being, obviously, the onside kick heard around the world. The Cowboys multiple double-digit comeback against the forever haunted Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons scored 39 points and had 0 turnovers and lost the game after leading by, I believe it was it 20 plus points?
It was around 20 points. It was just under what the Patriots beat the Falcons by.
Right. So at this point, the Falcons are cursed. Dan Quinn should probably lose his job, and the Cowboys escape their I don't know, how do I put this, tumultuous effort, and, you know, by fumbling the ball and everything, all their issues, by squeaking out a victory by Greg the Leg on a last second field goal. What'd you think of this game? What were your thoughts as this was all winding down?
I never count out the Cowboys, and it's because of that offense. They have too many weapons, and the Falcons' defense is not good. It's just straight up terrible. Like they were okay when they played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and ever since then, they've been losing players left and right. They haven't been replacing them. They don't know how to really coach up players on defense, and that's been a real problem. Their offense obviously has weapons: Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Todd Gurley, Matt Ryan. But you need to focus on the weaknesses when you're a team. You can't just focus on your strengths. And so you need to make sure that both sides of the ball, are playing up to par with each other, so you don't have situations like this. And the Cowboys, who fumbled and lost all 3 fumbles on their first 3 drives, were able to come back in this because they were coached better, and that kind of hurts me to say because I don't like how Mike McCarthy has been coaching. I think that they just have more talent, even though the Cowboys defense has been getting injured left and right. Mm-hmm. This is just a breakdown in coaching. It's a breakdown in skill gap. Like, there's a huge skill gap between these teams, and I think it's just it also came down to a lack of motivation by the Falcons when they are in these situations where they have this huge lead and the teams start coming back. It's like they give up on themselves. And as a coach, you need to be able to motivate your players, and these players should be self motivated. I don't know how you're in the NFL and you're not motivated to win the game. It just doesn't make sense to me. When you're
Yeah, pedal needs to be the metal you need to close it out.
Yeah, that's why you see the Patriots sometimes, putting up more points when they're up by 40 already. Because they just don't give up. You have to have that mentality. You're in a game that matters a lot. You only play 16 a season to get into the playoffs. Every single one matters. And if you get in the mentality where, oh, we have a lead, we can take the foot off the gas, then you're going to lose the game. You're out of the game. You've pulled yourself out. That's why players say if they don't feel like they're 100% into the game of football anymore, that's why they retire.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys really should be retired, right? If they're not giving 100% for 60 minutes.
Well, I think Dan Quinn's going to be forcefully retired from his head coaching position.
I mean, he's
by Arthur Blank and the ownership over there, because the fact remains is that this comes down to a lack of coaching, like you said, but a lack of leadership, and it starts at the head coach position. This is the second time in the Dan Quinn era where the team has had a stranglehold on their competition and just watched it float away. Obviously, this isn't the Super Bowl where it happened against the Patriots, but nonetheless, you scored 39 points and didn't have a turnover, and you couldn't win a game. Do you know what the statistic is for teams that scored 39 points and didn't have a turnover? Do you know what their win-loss record was?
What?
444 and 0. 444 and 0. And the Falcons took that O and put a big old Falcon bird right on top of it. You know what? I really don't know what to say. I like Dan Quinn. I think he's a good person. I think he's a great defensive mind, but he lacks the skill to coach up players from their base skill set to develop into bigger players. And I think he also lacks the requisite maybe experience or even knowledge to be a head coach in this league. He has not done a good job since he has taken over in Atlanta. You can point to them getting to the Super Bowl, but I'm going to say even a blind squirrel finds a nut. And he was able to get to the Super Bowl. You got to look at that offense and the way it was running. You had Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman. Kyle Shanahan's offense was absurd with Mohamed Sanu, Julio Jones, and Taylor Gabriel as your 1, 2, and 3 punch, and then that offensive line, and obviously Matt Ryan in the prime of his career. You had all the cards were in the right spot. All the stars had aligned for the Atlanta Falcons, and they got Dan Quinn, this brilliant defensive mind, to give Brady hell and high water, and he couldn't even land that home. And then ever since then, it's just been almost like they're scared of winning. They're scared of taking a lead. And as we saw this week, the Cowboys were able to just outplay them, outmaneuver them, and ultimately just outthink them.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Dan Quinn should have been fired last year or years ago, really. And he was about to be fired last year until the players actually, they said, we love this guy. We love him as our head coach, and we're finally going to play for him. And guess what? They started winning right away. They won, I think, 3 games in a row last season after it came out that Dan Quinn is about to be fired. So why don't they have that mindset all the time? If that's what it takes to motivate you, keep that mindset. Don't lose it, because it's going to happen one day. Dan Quinn's going to be out of a job, and you're going to be, sitting on your butt wondering what to do.
No, for sure. And just because Dan Quinn loses his job doesn't mean your job is still safe. I mean, that you're playing in a league where it is a dog eat dog world, and there are people behind you that are working tirelessly to take your job, and they may be your teammates and they may be your friends off the field, but on the field it is a war zone. And if you do not take care of what you need to take care of, somebody else will, and they will find the pieces that need to, because at the end, there's only so many spots in this NFL. And if you can't do your job, as, again, Bill Belichick likes to say, then somebody else will. Somebody else will do that job for you.
Next man up mentality.
That's right. I'm going to talk a little bit about that going forward as well. But I want to just finish off by saying, when Dan Quinn has a job, and I know you're going to roll your eyes because you hear me say this pretty much every single day, Dan Quinn should have been fired. I cannot understand why Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy still is not a head coach in the NFL. Why is he still an offensive coordinator for Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? I understand if that was the job that he wants, right? And if he didn't want to move out from there. But the fact remains is that he has applied and interviewed for head coaching positions, and he continuously gets passed up time and time again. I will not stop. I will not get off my high horse until Eric Bieniemy is hired as a head coach in this league. He is somebody that should be taken seriously. He has proven that he knows exactly what he needs to do for an offense in this league, and I believe that he has had the training under one of the greatest head coaches of all time in Andy Reid. He knows exactly what he needs to get done to win a Super Bowl, as he proved last year. And he can work with all different talent styles. Travis Kelce, as great as he is a completely different talent style than Tyreek Hill is. And, they used to have Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, completely different running back styles. He's worked with all different quarterbacks. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is, Patrick Mahomes, former MVP, but he also worked with Alex Smith, and he has also worked with, so many other great quarterbacks that have different skill sets. This man needs to become a head coach. And when you're looking at some of these head coaches around the league that shouldn't be there anymore, Adam Gase, and, there is a wonder in my head why he is still sitting there as an offensive coordinator. It's almost like, why Colin Kaepernick is still available. But to me, it's more egregious because Colin Kaepernick isn't in the NFL, right? So you can utilize the argument, well, we don't know what he looks like right now. You know what Eric Bieniemy looks like. You know what he can do. Why is he not a head coach?
Same question can be asked for Josh McDaniels. Yes, he was a head coach once before, but I think he's proven that he deserves another shot.
Yeah, but he also slighted the Colts, and I think a lot of teams took that the wrong way, right? So he was offered the Colts position, and then he decided to go back to New England for an offensive coordinator job. I think that that looks negative to other teams that are possibly looking for a head coach, saying, "Well, I don't want to get in that position with him again."
That was a situation where it just wasn't right for him, and he felt that he was better off staying in New England. And it has worked out. Frank Reich has been a great coach for the Colts so far, and Josh McDaniels has thrived as the offensive coordinator. He's he had a bad season last year, but that was just because the offense was just abysmal. We've seen so far this season, Cam Newton has been a monster. He could be in the MVP talks, honestly. And that's all thanks to Josh McDaniels and how he has restructured this offense around a mobile quarterback. Because if Tom Brady had the legs that Cam Newton has, then this team would be unstoppable. They would have been unstoppable last year with the lack of weapons. Because those weapons are still here, and the Patriots have been more dominant on offense than they were at any point last year.
Yeah, so let's move over and let's talk about the Patriots. Patriots and Seahawks played on Sunday Night Football. They played in Seattle. This is the first time the Patriots have played in Seattle since 2012. It's always a fun matchup when you get Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick going against each other. It is the oldest head coaching matchup in NFL history. Bill Belichick being 68 years old and Pete Carroll being 69 years old. It was an interesting game from the get-go. I believe it was not too early on that Quandre Diggs made an egregious hit on N'Keal Harry. ended up getting flagged for targeting and was disqualified from the contest. He was sent to the locker room for the rest of the day, and then not too long after that, Marquise Blair, his replacement at safety, went down with a torn ACL, so they had to continuously cycle in safeties. But the game was not over. This was when I looked at this game on the schedule, and maybe I was just being pessimistic at the time. I was like, yeah, the Patriots have no shot at this game. All I want to see is them compete. I want to see where their competitive level is. I want to see, if we can make it if it's a double-digit loss, if it's a 2-score loss, I'll be happy. Anything more than that, I'm going to be upset. And then we'll have to diagnose what the issue is from there.
No,
but the Patriots had a chance to win right at the end. I mean, they were on the goal line with 3 seconds left and no timeouts. Right? The clock is stopped. They have 1 play to go. And if he gets in, the Patriots win. If he doesn't, the Patriots lose. The Patriots lost. We can talk about the game, but I really want to talk about that final sequence and where the Patriots are. But tell me what your thoughts on this entire game were.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were pretty similar in our mindset. When I came into the season without Tom Brady, I said, okay, we're going to learn from our young players what we have and what we don't have and where we can build on for the next few years.
Right.
And after watching this game, Cam Newton has reignited that flame inside me that makes me love watching the Patriots play. That makes me want to see them win every single game, no matter what the matchup is. I looked at this game and said, yeah, we're going to lose this game. Let's just see what happens. What do we have? Who are our weapons? But as the game went on, our defense wasn't holding up. But Cam was. And the offense was. N'Keal Harry showed up. We finally got to see him. Julian Edelman had his best game. And Cam Newton was doing Cam Newton stuff. And to see that, it made me just love. It reminded me of why I love this team so much. And why I root for them so hard. Because this team can do anything at any time, because they have the right mindset, and it all stems from their coaching. And when you have players like Julian Edelman, who is too old and can't do it, or Cam Newton, who's coming back from an injury and can't do it, or so they say, those chips on their shoulders are what feed them. It's what feeds us as the fans, too. We love hearing that they can't do it, that they're too old, that they're not good enough, because it makes us want to prove them wrong. And as fans, it makes us want to root for them even more. And to see Cam out there on the last drive doing this, just driving down the field, absolutely obliterating the Seahawks defense, who's supposed to be one of the toughest defenses in the league, he tore them to shreds. And this came down to one play at the goal line that was a pretty good call. It's a play that wasn't being stopped all game long, and there were different versions of it throughout the game that have resulted in touchdowns. Cam runs in, Cam runs, fakes, throws it into the end zone for a touchdown. And so we've seen what Josh McDaniels has done, how he has reinvented this offense, and it has worked out great so far. And I don't think that the Patriots are getting enough credit for what they have done. The coaches are not getting enough credit. The players are not getting enough credit, and it's time to start thinking of the Patriots, like we always do, as a Super Bowl contender. Not just a playoff contender, a Super Bowl contender. This is a team that can go extremely far, and they have plenty of time in the season to make corrections.
Yeah. I want to speak to 2 points. The first of which being the final play, because that seems to be a lot of people's biggest point of contention with how this entire game went. If for those of you who didn't see the game, the Patriots had run this exact look multiple times throughout the game on the goal line, and it worked every single time. They ran different plays out of it, but it got them either yards or it got them into the end zone every single time. It almost looked like it was unstoppable for the Seahawks. Now, the play call I was very happy with, because I was like, we knew what was coming and they hadn't stopped it. Even if you know what's coming and you can't stop it, what does it matter? You can't stop it, right? That's the thinking. Here's my only point of criticism, and it more goes to the fact that Cam Newton is still so new to this offense, and that they probably have only touched the surface of the playbook and what they're going to be implementing. But I would have liked to have seen almost like a run pass option here, where they had the fullback Jakob Johnson out to the left of Cam. And he wasn't necessarily in the shotgun. He was closer. It was more of like a pistol set. So he was, I'd like to see a possibility where he can pitch it out to Jakob, where he could have bounced out instead of running right through the line. Or when he saw that the DBs on the left side, there was one linebacker spread out wide and one DB kind of offset a little bit. When he saw that, he should be like, okay, they're going to attack over the top of the line. It's going to be, difficult for me to get through this line. Let's check the play. I want who the tight end, Devin Asiasi, I want him to fake block the safety on the right side and then back corner into the end zone and rely on his arm, because the fact remains that people don't respect Cam Newton's ability to throw the ball still. They just think of him as some fullback or running back that can play the quarterback position. They call it like you said, a wildcat, where he can just do whatever he wants at any point in time. He torched this defense on the back end. He slung that ball so much. Julian Edelman had 179 receiving yards on Jamal Adams, right? That's no easy feat. And then on top of that, that's Julian Edelman's career high is 179. So I think there were a lot of encouraging signs. Again, hindsight is 2020. That play didn't work, so I would have liked to seen this. Overall, I think that'll get implemented as the season goes forward, and as Cam gets more involved with the playbook, and Josh McDaniels and him work together more. That's my first point. The second point is, how in the hell did the Patriots get Cam Newton so late in the preseason and for a minimal amount of money? How did this man sit at home for 80 plus days without a single phone call from any other team? And I talked about this on Twitter. Again, make sure to follow us. Make sure to engage with us on social media, because I do engage with people. Trust me, we have it out. How did this man not have a job? The biggest issue I have is that head coaches are too afraid to bring in competition for their quote-unquote franchise quarterbacks because they're too mentally frail to handle any sort of competition being brought in. The fact remains is that if you're the Chicago Bears, if you're the Los Angeles Rams, if you are the Denver Broncos, if you are Carolina Panthers, the New York Jets, these teams should be bringing in a player like Cam Newton and saying, you're going to compete for a job with Sam Darnold or Jared Goff or Mitchell Trubisky / Nick Foles. And then you just choose the winner. I mean, whoever performs the best. I don't know why that isn't commonplace. And this is exactly why Bill Belichick is playing chess while everybody else is playing, I don't even know. Not even. They're not even at the checkerboard. They're fucking sitting there twiddling their thumbs, because he is on par with this. He said, you know what? We like Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham proved a lot to us last year. They were very high on him, right? Then they bring in, let's bring in Cam Newton. We've also brought in Brian Hoyer. All three of you compete. Let's see who wins. Of course, they brought in a former MVP, and he won the job. But this man sat at home for 80 plus days waiting for a phone call, waiting for a team to call him, where you have Nick Mullins as the backup to Jimmy Garoppolo, or you have Jeff Driscoll as the backup to Drew Lock. I mean, these guys should have been able to compete against a top caliber quarterback that signed for absolutely no money at all. And you know what? Again, as a Patriots fan, I'm more than happy that this happened. But the fact remains is that you need to put respect on Cam Newton's name. And this is the reason why the Patriots are always going to be considered one of the top teams in the league, because they know what they're doing and your coach does not.
I just want to say the Browns were the only team that beat the Patriots to the punch when it comes to Cam Newton. They did offer him a job as the backup, but obviously Cam didn't want to be the backup. He said, I'm fully healthy. Carolina forced me out. I want to prove them wrong. This is my revenge tour. And so there really was no team that had an open starting quarterback position that offered him a job besides the Patriots. And that's why he took a $500,000 base salary to be on this team. Because
No,
it's
I
not
understand that, but my contention is that a team like Chicago or the Jets, instead of fully believing in Mitchell Trubisky and Sam Darnold respectively, bring in Cam Newton. And if Cam Newton can do the job better, then fine, let him play. But the fact remains is that you're so sold on your one guy. You need to, like, that's not a mindset unless they're Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, any of those guys, fine, totally understand, right? You're going to live and die by those guys. But these guys that haven't proved a damn thing, why aren't you bringing in top tier competition to either it's going to push them or make them fold? And I'd rather see them go one of those two ways and know that I made the right decision at the end, because now you're sitting there, again, it's hard to say with Drew Lock because he got injured, but now they're sitting there, wondering, twiddling their thumbs, being like, damn, Cam Newton sat there for almost 3 full months and nobody gave him a call. Like, this is why the Patriots are so far and away above every other organization in the NFL.
I don't want to say that Cam Newton wouldn't be the same player with a different team. I think there's a couple teams that he might be he would be this player with, but he couldn't have lucked into a better coaching situation. And he said it multiple times so far. When he first met Bill Belichick, all of his assumptions of Bill Belichick went out the window. He got to see Bill Belichick for who he really is, as the best football mind ever to coach this sport.
Yeah.
And that's when he started believing in this organization and into believing that he can be at his full potential with those coaches behind him, with McDaniels by his side, with Bill Belichick managing this entire team. That's
and
when
Bob
he
Kraft
fully
at the helm. I mean, that's
Exactly.
another thing.
This organization has done so much for him, and he realizes that, and that's why he's not only playing for himself anymore, he's playing for this team. He has fully bought in to the Patriot way, and that's why he is having so much success early on in this season.
If he didn't fully buy in, he wouldn't have made a personal handshake with every single player on the offense, right? He has a different handshake for every single person. He has gotten to know these guys. They named him the captain in his first season on the team. He was only, and it's not just like, oh, we signed a big name free agent, he's obviously our captain. He was there for what, 3 or 4 weeks before they named him a captain on the team. I mean, that's the type of presence that he is bringing to this locker room. That's the type of presence that this locker room is bringing to him. I think that this is a match made in heaven. And again, I cannot imagine why Bill Belichick, almost 3 months down the road, was the only suitor available for Cam Newton's services. Again, there were plenty of teams, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some, that should have been able to bring him in for a little money and say, you can compete with, X quarterback and see, and we're just going to take whoever the best option is. As a free agent quarterback, you can't ask for a better opportunity than that. You really can't. And I think more coaches need to start utilizing competition to drive their quote unquote franchise quarterbacks, because clearly Mitchell Trubisky is not a franchise quarterback. Sam Darnold, I mean, the jury's still out. I guess because
He's worse
of all
than
the
Trubisky.
injuries. But yes, but the Jets are just a failing organization. I don't know if it's on him or if it's on the organization itself, because look at what Ryan Tannehill has done outside of Adam Gase. We thought Ryan Tannehill was an absolute bust. He goes to Tennessee and leads them deep into the playoffs in his first year. not even full first year. So there's a lot of things that these coaches need to work on, and bringing in competition is by far and away needs to be toward the top of the list. All right. The final game I want to talk about happened on Monday Night Football. That was the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, the Las Vegas Raiders at home, opening up their brand new stadium against the New Orleans Saints. Now, the Saints didn't have Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is out with a
high ankle sprain.
Yeah, an ankle sprain. Otherwise they're pretty much healthy until this game. It was then the Raiders, kind of came out of nowhere. They were going punch for punch with them, and then late in the game they took it over and had a 10-point lead with I think like 3.5 minutes left, and that was it. That was pretty much the game right there. Do you think this was better Las Vegas Raiders, or was this worse New Orleans Saints?
I think it's a culmination of both. I think Derek Carr proved a lot. I think that he has been developing with John Gruden, and I know they don't really like each other. So that's a good sign that they've been able to work together enough where Derek Carr is improving as a quarterback, as somebody who is a veteran in this league. His weapons have been all over the place. He really hasn't had consistent weapons on this team, but now he has some young studs at wide receiver. Josh Jacobs is in his second year. That offensive line is becoming one of the best in the league. And Darren Waller is an absolute stud. But you have to also look at the Saints. Drew Brees, definitely showing his age. There's no question about it. They don't utilize their weapons properly. Emmanuel Sanders wasn't used until the last drive. That was his only catch of the game, was the last drive when they were already out of it. His only target. True. They barely target Jared Cook, and that's just their style of offense. I get that. Alvin Kamara is the main focus of their offense without Michael Thomas. But on the flip side, their defense is just so undisciplined, it's unbelievable. 119 yards of penalties from the defense in week 1 against the Bucs. I believe it was over 150 yards of penalty yardage this game. You're talking almost 300 yards of penalty yardage in 2 games. That's going to kill anybody's game. They're lucky they beat the Bucs in week 1. This is the biggest reason why they lost to the Raiders. They were stopping him. They had the answers for Josh Jacobs, but they didn't know how to stop Darren Waller. And Josh Jacobs, as much as you want to think he's the only person on that offense, they have a lot of weapons, and Derek Carr is better than you think. You can't, and that's why everybody was playing so unruly, is because they only game plan for Josh Jacobs, and when they're throwing deep to guys like Henry Ruggs, who's extremely fast, or Bryan Edwards, Zay Jones, Nelson Aguilar, they don't know how to stop him because they didn't game plan properly. So this falls on the coaches, this falls on the players, this falls on the organization as a whole. If they want to compete this year, then they need to start practicing better, they need to start coaching better, they need to start acting like a championship team. Because right now, the Saints are good on paper, but they are nowhere close to what they could be.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that the Saints could go out and beat the Buccaneers in a fashion in which they did in week 1, and then lay an absolute egg in week 2 against the Vegas Raiders. I do believe a lot of it does fall on the defense. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. They are absolutely abysmal. Dennis Allen has done a terrible job as the defensive coordinator for the Saints. They are extremely undisciplined. Their game plan is, I don't even know. I mean, you have studs on the defensive end. Marshawn Lattimore, Demario Davis, Cameron Jordan,
Janoris Jenkins,
Janoris Jenkins,
Malcolm Jenkins,
Malcolm Jenkins. I mean, these guys are just absolutely incredible at what they do, but the defensive game plan is just all wrong. It's just all wrong. That falls on Dennis Allen as the defensive coordinator. That's on him and the defensive coaching staff for not being more prepared for this matchup. On the flip side, I have to give Drew Brees a big knock because it just looks like the arm strength isn't there. I believe that time has finally caught up to Drew Brees, and he is no longer the guy that we thought or not that we thought he was, that he once was, right? He is not the 500-yard per game guy that's throwing around, slinging the ball, around the field. And the biggest issue is that it seems like the offense is way too much predicated on Michael Thomas being there and being able to separate in coverage, because what I saw is that no wide receiver was being targeted, and every single play was find Alvin Kamara, dump him the ball. That was what I saw every single play. And an offense just can't, you're not going to score on any professional defense that way. I don't care how bad the defense is. If they can key on one player because your other player is out, you're not going to win a game that way. Your defense too undisciplined. Your offense is predicated on one player. It's just, they're in for a rude awakening very soon if they don't get this resolved and quickly.
I have a couple questions for you. If
Sure.
Drew Brees continues to play this way, do they end up like the Giants last year where they benched Eli Manning and brought in Daniel Jones? Do they bench Brees and bring in a backup quarterback? And if so, who?
Taysom Hill.
So
I think it would have to be Taysom Hill. He's the only one that knows the offense like Brees does.
For the first question, do you ride or die with Brees, or do you make the move at some point if he continues to not play well?
It's tough. It's a tough scenario, but if you can pinpoint Brees just physically not being able to go, you have to take him out. I mean, he's just going to get injured otherwise. You don't want to see that. You don't want him to be forced out of the game. You'd much rather, him kind of just fade into the sunset instead. Jameis Winston is clearly their backup, but I think Taysom Hill has a way better understanding of the playbook and the play style, and he gives them a unique dynamic. He's not going to turn the ball over. Jameis threw 30 interceptions last year. Taysom Hill can run, different RPO packages. He provides so many different things that Drew Brees can't, that I think it'll be very interesting. We've never seen him as a quote unquote passing type quarterback, Taysom Hill. We haven't seen what he can do on a football field as far as, a full-time starting quarterback. I would be hard pressed to put Jameis Winston out there when you have a guy like Taysom Hill, who you spent money to re-sign this offseason, waiting in the wins as well and saying, listen, Jameis, you don't know the playbook. Taysom, you do. I think we're going to have to ride with Taysom. And it's going to be a tough conversation because Sean Payton's going to have to bench Drew Brees if this continues. I understand that. But the fact remains is that Taysom Hill should be next in line.
Yeah, and I think this is proving to a lot of people that Michael Thomas is the only reason that they've had so much success. Obviously, Alvin Kamara is great in his own right, but he can't be the entire offense.
Nope.
And they clearly have some studs on this team besides Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. Lat Murray, Traquan Smith. They have Adam Trotman, the tight end, the rookie tight end, who's been doing well. There's some other players on this team, and the offense needs to figure out, the offensive coordinator and Drew Brees need to reconfigure this offense around them so it's not just Michael Thomas centric and Alvin Kamara centric. It can't be that way. Teams are going to figure that out and know how to stop it, and you're not going to have any success, and you're going to lose to teams like the Raiders all year long. So they need to fix it. It starts with the coaching, and then it's a trickle-down effect to the players.
Yeah, no, for sure. It seems like the stars are aligning for the Buccaneers even after their first week one loss. That the division should look pretty dang easy if Drew Brees can't go anymore. because then who do you have to worry about? Carolina, Atlanta, who we already ripped into. I mean, these are, you know, they're in a perfect prime position. They're obviously already all in for this year with, the players that they've brought in. But I think the stars are starting to align for them to have a very easy road in the regular season and just starting to, just get healthy, get prepared for the postseason. And we're only in week 2. So, I mean, that there's an incredible, it's truly incredible how things work out when as soon as Brady walks into the door, the rest of the division starts to fall apart.
It definitely does. And even the Bucks have not been playing well. Tom Brady, I think, has more interceptions than he does passing touchdowns. So I think we're seeing the decline of Drew Brees and the decline of Tom Brady. And
I think we saw the decline of Tom Brady start last year in New England.
It's truly possible. I'd have to go back and watch it as a unbiased person now that he's not a Patriot, but it's definitely possible that, I mean, if Cam Newton is having this much success with these receivers that Brady had last year, then
Brady had more weapons last year. Think about that. We had Ben Watson, who is a better tight end than we have currently on the roster right now. And then you also had Mohamed Sanu, who we thought was a bust.
True.
Well, I mean, ended up being a bust. So, he had more weapons if you really want to get into the nitty gritty. And Cam Newton's giving Julian Edelman his career high in receiving yards.
And so Tom Brady has his best weapons ever right now, and he's still not doing that well. He is scraping by the Carolina Panthers, losing to this New Orleans Saints that just lost to the Raiders. So,
yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. I'm interested to see how all of this goes. But we talked about possibly benching Drew Brees and who would take over. I want to jump across the country to a situation that we don't really know too much about, but definitely took place on Sunday. For the Los Angeles Chargers, during pregame warmups, Tyrod Taylor had chest pains and was sent to the hospital. He was almost like incapacitated. He basically just he didn't collapse, but he like went to the bench and just couldn't get up. So they sent him to the hospital to get checked out, and then they had to start Justin Herbert, their rookie quarterback selection. Justin Herbert played an outstanding game, an absolutely outstanding game. He looked like a seasoned veteran. He looked like he knew what he was doing. He was not shy under pressure. He was able to call audibles. I watched him specifically try to maneuver the offense in certain ways. And you say Tyrod Taylor has the wheels. Well, Herbert does too. That man can move. He almost reminds me of a better passer version of Josh Allen. I think that's where I want to make that comparison. He's definitely more accurate with the ball. He was missing, people on the offense as well. So like he didn't have his full arsenal of weapons at his disposal either. But the Chargers were in this game late, and they were roaring and they were doing their thing. And Anthony Lynn came out yesterday and said, if Tyrod is healthy, he's our guy. I want to beg the question, should Tyrod Taylor be their guy? I mean, I know everything that's gone on with Tyrod Taylor in his career and all the, he's been overlooked constantly and everything like that. And it's nice that Anthony Lynn is giving him vocal support. But, I mean, your rookie quarterback just showed out in week 2.
He not only showed out in week 2, he showed out in week 2 against the reigning Super Bowl champs. The best team in the league, in my opinion. The best offense. This defense clearly can handle this towering offense. And we've seen that Justin Herbert can handle being the starting quarterback. Justin Herbert, the only knock coming from him out of college was that he's from Oregon. He grew up there. He played college ball there. He doesn't know how to play outside of Eugene, Oregon. And that's the worst thing I've ever heard. Like, how can you say a player is not going to play well because they're not in their hometown or their home state? Like that is just
You
so
can't.
absurd to me. And Justin Herbert is quickly proving everybody wrong that it doesn't matter where he's playing, he's going to play well because he's that good. And
Yeah.
like you said, he looks similar and plays similar to Josh Allen, but far superior when it comes to passing. And he had a couple mental lapses in this game, but it's his first game, and there were very few of them. He's going to pick up this offense quickly. He's going to figure out how to be a NFL quarterback quickly, and it's only a matter of time before he fully takes over this team. I don't agree with Anthony Lynn. Tyrod Taylor is a great leader. He'll be great at supporting Justin Herbert moving forward and teaching him what he needs to learn. But Tyrod Taylor is like Brian Hoyer, where he just can't perform it on the field. He'll do everything outside of Sunday and do everything that you ask him to do. But when it comes to playing on Sunday, don't expect him to perform as well as you think he's going to, because he just doesn't have the ability. He may have the mindset, but not the ability. And Justin Herbert has that ability. It's time for Tyrod Taylor to take that back seat and teach him everything he knows. That way Justin Herbert can be his best self.
Yeah. I would you know, I would like to see Tyrod Taylor. You say Brian Hoyer. I want to liken him more to Alex Smith. I want to see him become the guy that is going to create a superstar in his shadow. Because the more Tyrod Taylor plays, the more that you're doing a disservice to the guy that you have put the franchise on, right? That you selected Justin Herbert, I believe it was 10th overall, if I'm not
I
mistaken,
think it was sixth.
or 6th. Okay, 6th. You selected him early in the first round because you believe he is going to be your franchise quarterback. And you saw what he was able to do against the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs and that vaunted team. And he was able to play.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. He was able to play lights out. He was able to do absolutely everything Tyrod Taylor could do and then some. So I believe that from what we saw, Justin Herbert needs to be the guy moving forward. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I understand where Anthony Lynn's coming from. You never want to rush a rookie quarterback, especially your first round pick, into the game because we've seen it Baker, Sam Darnold, Mitchell Trubisky. These guys need time. They need to be behind somebody. We saw Lamar behind Joe Flacco, Patrick Mahomes behind Alex Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo behind Tom Brady. These guys
Tom Brady
usually
behind Drew Bledsoe. I mean,
Tom Brady behind Drew
those
Bledsoe.
great quarterbacks were always they learned from somebody.
Drew Brees took some time to become a starter in this league. The history has shown you're better off holding off on starting these guys until they are ready. At least give them a year to learn the playbook and become their best self. But I believe Justin Herbert's there. I don't think he needs any more time. He has proven that he has better weapons than he ever did in his career outside, in Oregon or playing in high school. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Kelly or
Hunter Henry,
Josh Kelly, Hunter Henry. These are some of the best weapons in the NFL, and Justin Herbert's proving that he knows what to do in multiple situations. He's going to make a couple mistakes. Every rookie does. Every quarterback does.
right?
But he knows how to limit them. He knows how to play the game of football at an elite level, and I think he's ready to do it now. Don't hold off if you don't have to. This is a team that I believe could compete against the Chiefs going into the playoffs. So,
oh yeah, for sure. The Chargers are right there team wise. It's going to be interesting to see how this moves forward. Obviously, I think Anthony Lynn is also trying to voice support for Tyrod Taylor, saying, "Don't rush yourself back because you're worried about your job. Get healthy, get right, and then we'll work with you from there." So I think he's trying to put that out there and say, because a chest injury is no joke, especially when somebody was almost to the point of not being able to breathe or move. So I wish him all the best in getting back and healthy and everything. But he's in a tough position because I believe that Justin Herbert can outduel him at the quarterback position.
For sure.
So, all right. I believe that's all we have for this week. I thank you all for tuning in. Much appreciated. A lot has gone on. Make sure to smack that subscribe button. It's completely free. So I don't know what you're doing. Stop bullshitting. Okay.
Yeah, the majority the majority of our listeners have actually are not subscribed. So just do it. Just do it.
Smack the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Make sure you know every time that we post a video. Make sure you're following us on TikTok and Twitter. We are constantly posting. We're constantly talking with our fans. We're engaging with everybody throughout the league and all different media reporters. And as most of you have seen on social media, we are not afraid to clap back at people when they are talking bullshit. Okay. So I'm ready. I'm ready for the trash talk. I'm ready for everybody to get going. Again, I can't urge you enough. Make sure to smack that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hopefully that once we get everything set, maybe we start having some of you guys tell us, what you want on the show, or maybe we have a special guest on here. You never know. We'll choose from our subscriber list. Make sure you're subscribed. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Peace and love, baby.